Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call to order the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission for July 11th, 2022. And we'll first start with the roll call, and we'll start with my left.
Menacing second for district. Howard McCosh, 5th district.
Keith Kaufman, Gray, 2nd District Chair.
Ronald Nye, at large.
Randy Malcolm, 5th District. Okay, we have a quorum today. Do we have any public comment that is not on today's agenda? Seeing none, we will move on. Okay, number 3 is the minutes. The first one's mentioned as the minutes of May 9th. Unfortunately, we do not have a quorum to be able to proceed with those minutes. There are some suggested revisions to these. I'm not sure on how we can do that. Like last time, could they be submitted and then put revised and then brought back for final approval?
Do you want me to
Okay,
answer? I think that would be fine.
Okay, so Commissioner Duncan has brought some suggested corrections to the revised approved minutes of May 9th. So Commissioner Duncan, would you like to go over them for us?
Can council point about that's okay for us to do?
Yes, they said it was okay.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so they're up on the screen there, if you can see them. So obviously, originally. Yeah. I believe they now changed them, but it should refer to the revised. Oh, that's it. Anytime we have a, this is for June 13th, David. We need May 9th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anytime we have a document that's been changed and it was previously seen by the public, we really should say revised. So the text on this at the top really should say the revised unapproved minutes. And that way we'll be able to keep straight which set we're looking at. So that's my first suggestion for revisions. And then there's just a little typo in the motion for item 2 at the bottom of the page. Yeah, it should say direction to staff to return. And then moving on to page 2. Since you've got this all in text, David, you should have it once you leave this room. You have listen to me. So then on page 2, under public comment, instead of simply having Ryan Tetley listed there, let's actually put in what he said. Ryan Tetley, an agent for the San Antonio Juventinians, was present to hear what might be said about the Grenade House meeting under district reports. And then under district reports itself, we actually got this text added, which is what I had recommended. However, there's one small thing I think where we could add clarity and avoid redundancy. In the first sentence of the second paragraph, when it's about the Benjamin Foxen, what I would say, replace the first reference to site with location. So then Commissioners Knight and Duncan discussed their research regarding the location of the Benjamin Foxen Adobe site and the letters suggesting the county, etc. Okay, and then moving on to the Lake Kachuma letter number 9. There we go. Yes. With this one, just revise it to read approve and send the Kachuma Lake Recreation Area better with revisions. And then under item 10, revise the listing. So instead, it refers to. We need to move up to the next page so we can see item 10 there. That's not. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So it should read, obviously, the Historical Landmarks Advisory Commission instead of the committee. And then when we get to public comment here, before public comment, we really should put in Dr. Steve Windhager, Director of the Santa Barbara Land Guard, review the additional materials provided to HLAC regarding the previously requested revisions and new revisions to the proposed project. So what we heard from Steve Windhager should get stuck in there. And then we took, and staff already moved down the down to the action and revised it so it really read as an action. So that's correct now. But this is what I suggest for our comments under this section. Commissioners appreciated the requested changes to the roof and siding of the storage shed and composting toilet and the revised siding of the shed to reduce visual impacts. Commissioners particularly appreciated the excellent analysis of the project provided by David Stone, analyzing the project's consistency with the cultural landscape master plan. This was totally in the report, and the potential to impact archaeological resources. Commissioners noted that the decision to delete 2 additional stone benches and remove an existing one increased the project's consistency with the CLMP. So I thought it was important to get these important issues in there. And like I said, if you go to the very bottom now, David, now you've got an action there. The only thing is it should be formatted like an action. And when we do that, they get indented. And those were the suggested revisions for.
I noticed one more,
Minutes of May 9th.
and that's just the reference to the next meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say that should say June 13th instead of July 11th.
Maybe we just check and see if you're reading them.
But actual consideration of this will have to be continued to a meeting where we have these 5 commissioners.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any other corrections to this, even though we can't vote on it? They'll be brought back to us at a later date.
Question regarding the last comment Mr. Duncan made. Is this, that is, if he wanted those comments added to the HLAC comments and then a separate item for action, is that the idea?
Yeah. It depends what version of those minutes you're looking at. If you got an old one, we had, and you're right, so we had an old one there.
I think it's one.
Yeah, see, it doesn't actually have our action.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, you're right. But the newer version, it has the action, but then the comments.
All in favor of those.
Okay, we'll move on to the next set of minutes. These are for the minutes of last month, June 13, 2022. Again, I believe we do not have a quorum to accept these minutes. We can do the corrections like we just did for the minutes. And we do have some submitted proposed corrections by Commissioner Duncan for the June 13th meeting. Commissioner Duncan, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. So actually, David has them up on the screen here right now. So with underneath the minutes itself, I think we need a better explanation of why we couldn't do anything. So that we don't look like idiots trying to take an action when we don't have the necessary numbers. So I suggest the commission deferred, and that's what we did actually. We didn't take, we deferred consideration of the minutes of May 9th to a meeting when all 5 commissioners present in May could vote to adopt them, requires 5 commissioners to constitute a quorum. And then underneath the project discussion, this obviously is where we're talking about Chris Urban's. So I think we really do need the 4 H-flat comments. Chris Urban reviewed the final product of the archiving project, information that was missing or unclear, and his recommendations for follow-up. And then underneath the various H-flat comments bullets here, I add this bullet at the top. Commissioners express their appreciation for Mr. Urban's work, which I think we all do. Okay, and then unfortunately, this comment as it's listed here now doesn't get to what Randy is saying, so I attempted to write a new one. So I hope he's listening. Commissioner Milton suggested that original photos and/or newsprint items of historical value that were photocopied should be preserved, but they could be isolated to archival stakes. That was the point that he made. And then going down to budget, this is where we actually approve the funds for the archiving project. Obviously, it just instead of Lansing Duncan, replace that Lansing with Commissioner Duncan. Then that will work. And then down to the Botanic Garden memorandum. Once again, we had the same sort of situation that I would revise the text. We didn't actually continue it. When you continue it, it suggests like you actually discussed it. So instead, I would say the commission deferred consideration of the memo to a meeting with the necessary quorum, since Commissioner Stowe recused herself from any discussion. Then, turning on to the Coral Casino renovations, I suggest we revise the bullets so that they're a little bit more accurate. One commissioner opposed the project and feels it was a mistake to approve the previous version when it came to the H-flat 2 years ago. And then the majority of the commission supports the redesign project as a means to comply with ADA requirements while minimally impacting the historic resource. That's what I suggest as part of the Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So your suggestion is to replace the bullets that are in these,
Exactly.
the 2 critical bullets. Okay. Any other comments on these minutes?
So, good.
I agree, I like it also.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It really, really helps. And again, we'll move these to a future meeting for approval. Okay, we can move on now to item 4, staff update. Planning development, staff will provide a report on items of that interest to the commission members.
So I did receive some comments about the audio, so I figured we would probably talk on this. I'm trying to remember what I mentioned last time, so I think I mentioned that.
Not the end, maybe.
It's actually kind of that Ms. Graham had resigned from planning and development. So if you happen to walk over to the corner office there, you'll find her there. Went to the county clerk's office. And so we did have a couple of, and Keith might have, and maybe your help to remember everyone. So we did have a couple of resignations since the last meeting. The one we found out about after the last one was mistake.
Yes, just.
And then, so the first district has also, they've been in contact with Commissioner Lee. They asked her to resign, give her other commitments, and we're going to replace her. Now also, there's a lot that happened at the last meeting. discovered that he was affected by the redistricting, and so he's no longer in the second district. So my understanding is that tomorrow that Commissioner Weeks' position is going to be filled by Chair Dr. Gray. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, I checked. It is on the consent agenda.
And then so that means that we'll have an opening in the second district. And then Commissioner Weeks' position as well. That's all that I have. I did think of at the moment.
May I ask which district were you in?
I'll be in the first district.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I first time when I got my absentee ballot, I realized why wasn't I able to vote in the second district election? And then I went online and I found out that my street is the border between the first and second. So I was moved to first. My neighbors across the street are still in the second district.
So we no longer have a vacancy in the first district.
No, it's still.
So that
We now have
makes,
a
that's
vacancy
the
in the-
director.
Yeah, now we have a vacancy in the second, and we still have vacancies, we have 3 vacancies.
Right.
We still have the second, the third, and the fourth. So that's something I will hopefully get some work. Hopefully, anyone here, if anybody in this district, so it would be nice to be able to do this.
I have some questions for staff.
Go right ahead, Commissioner.
One of the things I wanted to ask David about was these 3 vacancies. Do you or anybody on staff have time to call the various supervisor offices and ask them to try to find folks? I've done that before. It's just a matter of staying on, and if you don't, because of the current shortage, I'll understand, but I thought I'd ask.
Staff can do some outreach. I know that oftentimes that supervisorial districts are in the background of people. I've seen many things like the news talk and locations where they're recruiting. They may have someone in mind already, but I'm happy to just touch base and see where we are, because I think that we now have one that might generate that computer. So
We have 3, and that's really not good for forums. Or,
no problem at all.
okay, thank you. Also, this whole thing of allowing the public to access by Zoom, but not commissioners. I know I asked you a little bit about that. It would really make sense to allow commissioners who say are out of town, but are willing to phone in. And in fact, 2 of them who were out today said they would call in if they could. So can you look into this? That would help.
It's not, there's no looking into it required elements. So the reason why that is not allowed is because it's the law. That's the way the Brown Act states. So when your commission voted to go to hybrid meetings, essentially that the hybrid part is for we have a staff member present, hybrid for the public. It's for them to participate remotely. Now, for commissioners, you basically have to go back to the provisions that existed in the Brown Act previously. So commissioners can attend remotely, although it is a little bit of a process. So you have to let staff know in advance. And we have to publish the alternate location, which is where you are located remotely, to make that space available to the public. Now, there are certain things that our alleged committee is pursuing bills that would perhaps allow a member or 2 to remain remote, but that's in the works. Until there is a legislative solution for it, this is where we find ourselves. Now, so there is no opportunity for you to just, wake up one morning and say, we could, you tell staff in advance, we can put it on the agenda and notice it properly. Yes, then you can participate remotely. So if you know you're gonna be in advance, like in a different state, but you want to participate, we can make that happen. Perhaps we will have a legislative solution at some point. I'm not really sure where we are with that. I had to talk to a about that. She just reported on a couple times, the planning commission. It does kind of segue into something that I want to talk about on the budget commission during staff updates. So for the couple of you who were here for the meeting, I sent out an email yesterday indicating to the commission that just due to the rise in COVID infections, I guess I would say, amongst staff and just in general. So our management team PP management has asked that staff wear masks indoors, and so I asked members that suggested the same thing for you, but that's really up to you. The second part of that is that staff has asked, or management has asked me personally to then start revising agendas to place findings to be to go back to remote on our agendas. It was too late for HLAP, but I did that for County Planning Commission. You know, let's say that on Friday. As we do that for the Central Board of Architecture Review, they have their first hybrid meeting on Friday. So clearly, again, it's up to each of the boards, but I think that our management is concerned enough that they would like each boards to consider going back to making money. So it's not a great situation out there right now. So you know, when HLAB, County PC, South Board of Architecture Review, and Central Board of Architecture Review voted to go to a hybrid model. Staff recommendation has always been that you remain in notice as long as possible. So, but clearly, that's again, it's up to you. Our management just asked to put it on agendas for reconsideration because it looks like we're heading in the wrong direction.
Okay, I will go ahead with my question. I have attended meetings in the past where there was, this is pre-COVID, and where people were on video from a remote location that was within the county offices. These were staff people. And there was, in this case, was one staff person in his office or in the community room in the building where he worked. And I'm just wondering if some of the North County people could agree on a common location in one of the county's facilities that they could, rather than drive all the way down here in person, they could have remote access to this meeting from their approved facility, either in, wherever it is, San Marino, there's one in Lompoc, in Foster Road, or anywhere else.
Potentially, yes. So it would require that it be a location that we have easy access to and have control of the equipment. We did receive that question from our North Fork Architecture Review. I think considering going back to in person, but there was one member who had some concerns about that, and so it was offered at that point that we could utilize one of the conference rooms at our Foster Road office for him to sit in, and we would just have to make sure that we notice that properly on the agenda. The caveat is, although when you have an in-person meeting somewhere else, it's unlikely that people would do so, but people would have the opportunity to participate in that location with that member if they wanted to. So that's the only caveat. So the short answer is yes, but with some caveats.
So it's, just to follow up, that would allow public access to the meetings. Those facilities were available, public could attend and be on people remotely. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they could do so like via Zoom now, but if they did not like Zoom for whatever reason, they could also attend remotely there as well. Yes, because any spot that we have for commissioners participate remotely, we have to make available to the public. And I just want to make the distinction because of how you framed your question. So with staff members, so I just will let you know now that a lot of our staff members are working from home. And so, and or from their personal desk, and so clearly we're not going to make those spaces available to the public or required.
This whole question revolves around public access. And anybody can access remotely to meet the criteria of public access. That's the idea. Thank you. I understand what you're saying.
Sure,
Sure, Commissioner.
David, just so I understand you, this hybrid concept, were you saying that this commission needs to make that it can vote to go hybrid? And maybe
That's what we're doing today. That's what this is.
we are?
This is hybrid, yes. That's what this owl right here is for, people to be able to participate via Zoom.
But it's not hybrid for the commission. So
Again,
that's what I'm asking.
that is not what you guys voted on. That is a separate issue.
Because that has to come down from Sacramento.
For us to be able to do it without noticing, right? And so you can still be remote if we put it on the agenda and make that space available for the public. That's what we can do currently. There may be a legislative solution. I'm not sure if that is going to be something that would be. I don't know, but it's being looked at.
That's good. All right, thank you.
So just,
Mr. Chair, I've got a couple of questions.
are you switching topics? Is it still about the?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to type real quick. So the way I understand it, since you were unable to put it on today's agenda to vote to go back to remote, we will still be in person in August, but it will be on the agenda to vote for September to possibly go back to remote. Is that correct?
So that's a good question. Because the segue to something that was going to point out. So perhaps that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is also if you could also schedule a special hearing in between now and then and use that special hearing to make those findings, and then you would be remote for your office.
But since we've already said we're in person, that means it would have to be in-person special meeting.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
So we'd have to get five members to show up.
to show up and vote.
So, we can always take care of that at your August meeting, or I leave it to the commission to decide.
So the way it sounds like August is in person, but we can vote for September for that. Okay, okay, let's move on. And let's go to Commissioner Dunn. Oh, and remember, if you're finished talking, please turn off your mic because it has feedback.
Thank you. Speaking of sound system and feedback, the feedback to me was that people on Zoom were getting a huge echo chamber last time. Extremely difficult to understand what the commissioners are saying. I have a feeling that's something to do with the little jug out there, left turn. Is that something that can be worked on?
Yes, and so I think that's a direct result of having these meetings in this group. So, you guys picked the most difficult option and went with that to set up. So we did utilize this device here. We utilize for off-site hearings to offer that same component, but it's only designed for medium-sized conference rooms. So I did make a change and kind of made that a little bit closer to the board members. The echo, I'll see if it's any better this time. It could be results of, even if there's not any interference in the group, it could be a result of of using the PA system. So I don't have an immediate solution. This is going to be a trial by error, but it's definitely a result of holding the meeting in this room.
Okay, thank you. Next, do you have, it's hitting the mic, so. Do you have any words of encouragement about teacher staffing, as I know it's a problem, big problem.
Encouraging? No. So I think that that's a discussion. I've talked to Deputy Director Travis Seward about that. The last time that he and I spoke about it, where he was stood, given the staffing issues that we have in the department, is that planners would come to meetings if they had an item on the agenda, much like Ms. Volpe is online today for her item 8 or 9 on the agenda. That might be the extent of it. Now, I think that it might be something that the chair or vice chair might want to engage with our management about. It's not been something that has been at least initiated on their side to me or the chair. So I think it might to be doing the asking. Okay.
Did you clarify what you just said? What did?
No one is volunteering staff. So I think the point is that if we really want to push it, that might be something the chair should to follow up with their management about.
I see. So one of us needs to get in touch with
Mr. Seawards.
Mr.
Seawards. He's the deputy director of development review for planning and development.
How's that spelled?
Seawards. First name Travis.
And the former assistant has left, former assistant director, Jeffrey, somebody?
So, no, you're talking about assistant director Jeff Wilson. So he could be another resource, but it's going to be Mr. Seaward's staff. If it's going to be anybody, so that's why I would suggest writing.
Lastly, and this spills over into, well, 1 or 2 things below, but would you check into Mr. Irwin's payment? Is that in process?
So, yes, I was talking to the chair about this before the meeting. So, the week of the meeting, I did officially put my stamp and signed it and submitted it to our accounting staff. And indicated that it was ready for payment. And then the second part of that email was following up on the question the commission had regarding the rollover funds from their prior fiscal year. I have not received a response on either one. And I will need to follow up probably a couple of times given the staffing situation with our accounting. So the answer, it's in process. This is the short answer, yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, go right ahead. I had a question about the remote meetings. Why can't we just vote to have a special meeting that is remote?
So the situation, right, is that in order to be remote, you have to make the findings. And so, I mean, it's kind of a chicken and egg sort of situation. So you have to, can't be remote until you make those findings. And in order to make those findings, because you haven't made those findings already, it has to be in person.
Why don't we just make the findings right now?
Because it's not on the agenda.
Or neither to have a special meeting.
The board can vote to set a special hearing at any time.
So you have to do the findings to have a remote meeting before we do have a finding a special meeting.
No, so you have to set, so, right, so we can either take care of it at your next meeting and just have it on the agenda, take care of it then, or we can set a special meeting, which members would have to be in person, to vote, to make those findings, to be remote for the next.
It doesn't make sense. Why don't we, as a part of the discussion, to say we want a special meeting, as part of that discussion, hey, we made the plans to have a remote special meeting.
Doesn't work that way.
Okay, fine, thanks.
Okay, let's move on to item number 5. Okay, let's get is project discussions. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will discuss funding potential historic projects and supplemental letters. We have from the subcommittee from Commissioner Duncan a couple of things that he put together concerning our website and potential projects to be funded. So I'm just thinking I will turn this over to Commissioner Duncan, and then you can go through your two lists if you have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was actually part of a subcommittee along with Commissioner Milgrom and Commissioner Snow. And before I forwarded these to you, they were reviewed by them too. And Sheila thought it looked like a good start. Randy was ready to jump in right away. And Sheila, of course, is here today. So what I attempted to do was start to list some of the obvious things we could do. And this list is not prioritized. It just, this, what I was hoping is we could start to prioritize it. And this list also does not attempt to be exhaustive. And that's why down under number E, you'll see alternative projects. So any other things we might want to do. So obviously, no brainers, I think, in some regard, are going back to our website update project and completing the work done by Michelle Nellis during the COVID lockdown. When we first started into the lockdown, Michelle Nellis did a bunch of work where Chair and I and myself reviewed that, and she completed many things, but other things she did not have documents that she could get at. And so when she finished that work, one of the things I did was to provide the commission with an update of HVAC website listings. So if we go to the other sheet, David.
What was that?
What this,
Update.
Yeah.
HLAC website.
yeah, it's the one that accompanies this. Status list, I think you might have it underneath something like that. There we go, okay. So this is a new version of this previously provided list, which showed the things that Michelle Nellis had completed. Those essential landmark and place of merit listings were completed to be ready to put on the website. But then there were other ones where she saw that she needed things. So I've gone down here and put some notes on that based upon the information provided by Mr. Urban. And I figured pretty much that if Mr. Urban had stuck in the number of the Board of Supervisors resolution, then we must have the Board of Supervisors resolution, because pretty much that's the only way we get it when that document is completed. So you'll see that some of these have little asterisks next to them. Some of them have these little crosses, and some of them have a little hash mark number symbol. So for instance, at the very top, we can see that she noted that they needed the final resolution. It's actually number 2018, number 3. Well, we should be able to find that now because Mr. Urban said he had the number, so he probably has that resolution. So if you look down through this, you can see that a lot of these could be easily completed simply because we can see that we have that information. That's the case with these ones with the asterisks. Then the ones that have the little plus in it, these are ones where Mr. Urban's inventory suggests, well, we don't have anything, basically right now. Now, I know we've got these documents around somewhere. I have some of them myself. Obviously, we have them in digital form. Do we want to simply take the digital form ones and print them up so we then have paper versions of them too? But these obviously could be completed. And then if you look down here, there's some that I stuck with a little hash mark here where this is, we need more info here. And that's the case, for instance, with Hotel Fremont. Whatever we need to either put some more information in the file that shows that we delisted this essentially. You know, and I believe now there isn't a listing, I don't think, online. But if it's still in our list, then we need a statement somewhere that says that it's being delisted, that's why there is additional information. Anyway, so this is an attempt to show that, oh, we can clean up a lot of these things pretty easily, I think now, if we decided this is one of our projects. And then obviously, once you completed those pages, they could get posted to the website itself. So that's what number 2, if we could go back to the other list. Thank you. So number 2 under A, up at the top, there we go. We'd actually post the completed files to the HLAC website. And then this is obviously something way down the road, but this is one of the things I believe that Mr. Urban does, and some people have commented that our website is really clunky, and we might have somebody better work on that. But so those are all listed under website update project. And then under B, these are no-brainers too, and it's just a matter of what we want to do first. Doing all the things that he suggested we needed to do to sort of clean up the work that he did. That's a number 1 and number 2. Then number 3 is locate those things that are missing and complete those files. Number 4 is finding out what's the issue with Colby Estates. Why is it listed as a landmark, but we only have data that shows it's a PHM. And then there are other things that Mr. Urban's file shows where they're just missing data. And we need to fill out, if we can, that data. Then we've got the ongoing maintenance issue, and that's number C. We want to figure out how, as we go forward, we're going to deal with that. There's even been a suggestion that, well, maybe we could take some of our funds and have Mr. Urban periodically work on that and punch in the things that we've done, let's say, in the last 6 months or a year or something like that. And D is going back to some of the original accessing of material as far as what we have out there in the real world. The original assessment of our signage out there for landmarks and seeing where we need it, how we would do it, and obviously how we fund it and prioritize it. So these are things I thought that were pretty obvious apart from alternative projects, and it was just a matter of prioritizing, figuring what we want to do first.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Duncan. So we have this report from the subcommittee. We guys could go to questions from commissioners on this. I mean, my first off, would be, we're waiting for the budget to come in, so it's hard to prioritize something without the money, but maybe we can prioritize something, and then when we get the money, find out how much it will cost to do. We asked for that rollover that Mr. Villalobos talked about today. We haven't heard back if we got that money, because when I wrote the letter, it was for updating the website with that money. So, I mean, that's a potential, but we don't know if we have that money. So these are questions, but let's move to commissioner comments about this list here. So let's see, let's do it, Commissioner Witch first, and then Commissioner.
Who is Mr. Urban? Chris?
He was the one that actually did our file update, which is pretty amazing.
Is he county staff?
No, he was outside, he works for store,
He is the archivist at the Glenville Library, which is at the Sandbar Historical Museum on the Daycare Street. And the commission hired him as a consultant to reorganize and document all of our physical files that have been produced over the last 20 years that were in a mess. And he did, so he did that, and he also put everything into a spreadsheet. So all of our old files are easily retrieved now. But there are some holes in the information. So we think he is open to following up with some of these additional projects in the conversations I've had with him. And I hope I'm not out of line. I thought I was on that subcommittee, but I guess I'm not. Because I see Mr. Urban on a regular basis because I'm doing a research project. So I've asked him if he'd like to continue on in some way.
So he
I was
is.
glad we moved, but no.
I didn't hear that. So Mr. Urban is both historian and an IT person.
Amazingly, he's an archivist and an IT person, but he is serving as the reference librarian and archivist now. He spent his career in IT and working on websites and compiling and organizing electronic data.
So he
And he loves the work.
that's great. I just didn't know anything about it. And-
Well, you have to come to the
Yeah,
meeting.
that's true. That's true. But I know that I have a website and I have to go around Robinson's Barn to get the people that know how to get into the brains of the website and tinker with it and change language and insert images and so forth. And he's that person.
For our purpose, for the commission's purposes, yes,
Okay.
I believe.
Right.
But he has a full-time job down there, and he was able to work on Saturdays on this through the extreme good graces of the planning and development department. And David helped also setting all that up. So we're extremely fortunate. Otherwise, none of this could happen.
So getting then to around an appreciation of the time frame that all this happened, it would have had to have happened during those 2 sessions that I missed. So it's like recent. This is not pre-COVID stuff.
Very recent.
Okay, thank you. That's
Thank you, Howard. Those are all good questions. So I'm happy to fill in for you.
It was the completion of the project that occurred recently. So we authorized it.
Commissioner, any more questions?
I don't know if I have questions or
Questions, but-
comments.
If you think about the list here.
Oh, I endorse this list. And then there's items that we certainly need to consider and decide upon. There was Mr. Duncan raised the issue of whether we want to continue, and he may not have meant to raise the issue, but there is an issue whether we want to continue with paper files. And I've asked Mr. Urban about that. And his feeling was that David may have to sign in and help us address this. That if the county has a very, very strong security backup system, which we assume it does for its files, then it may not be necessary for us to keep maintaining paper files beyond what we already have, of course. But it all depends on the very high level of security that we hope most businesses and governments have maintained for their files and records. And which raises another question. Is it possible to include our little commission's files in the records, digital records that the county takes great care in storage and security for. So lots, a lot of questions.
I think I'm gonna wait to respond until we get through.
Okay, thank you.
All at once.
Commissioner.
So pending the awaiting response. I have some concern that if the county's records for all of our transactions and historic, designations and so forth, are removed from hard copy. In other words, original documents. I'm very uncomfortable with that because I think of digital files as being manipulable. And I just wonder if you have concern that somewhere, in the vaults or in the basements of God knows where, that you would have, there could always be hard copy. So that if there was a dispute online, I said this, he said that, this action was taken. No, it was 1833, not 1933, blah, blah, blah. That could be verified by physically laying hands on a document.
I share all those concerns as a historian. This is way out of my area of expertise, digital storage. These are questions we would need to ask experts, and we don't know what the county does with its records, but obviously it's it goes everything from building permits to highly secure legal matters and personnel matters. One would assume that the county has very sophisticated methods, but who knows? I don't know. We would have to consult people beyond our specialties. But I didn't mean to open the kettle fish here,
No, that's fine.
but it's something down the road to think about, and probably don't have to think about it now. Sorry about that.
Well, again, now that the kettle of fish is here, I have a thought about this. One is that the use of the files is public use, staff use, any use, and for the purposes of public use and staff use, the digital archive makes a lot of sense. But there is always this business of going back to the original Gutenberg Bible, what did it say, and that should be something that's protected. So two different camps there.
Okay, I think we need to move on. This is a big discussion.
Commissioner Malcolm? Questions too. Is there any one specific person or entity that is charged with maintaining our website?
Mr. Chair, just to clarify that, the discussion here about talking about the HVAC website, it's obviously the content that we have control of. And it's that the county itself has their own webmaster who obviously puts it all together and oversees it. So that's a slightly different issue. And so it depends what your question is.
Okay, the thing is, we're discussing to have somebody else, like Chris Irvin, do all what we need done, but why can't the person that's charged with maintaining and uploading everything to our website do that? Are they overworked, or they just can't do it, or what's the deal with that?
I think the reason why I put this notation on this is that the way the content is arranged is not in a particularly sophisticated or up-to-date manner. And you may recall, in fact, that one of our past commissioners, who was only on the commission a very brief period of time, and he offered to try and clean this up, then disappeared from the commission. Yeah, the technique, for instance, that Michelle Nellis uses, basically real cut and paste, a lot of different things stuck together. It's not very clean. It's not necessarily the way that we use the least amount of information. So it's efficient as far as the operation of the digital file. And I suspect that Mr. Urban could take essentially the same content and massage it around in a way so that you have a more aesthetic and a more efficient presentation. But then that will actually obviously have to be, put online by the counties.
Okay, that sounds great. However, then there's going that part C to the ongoing maintenance. Now, for example, if Chris gets this project from us, can he relate all that information to the county webmaster for that webmaster to maintain it rather than we hiring Chris in perpetuity to do it?
I think we're pretty confident about his ability to create a file that could be uploaded easily by the webmaster that would be compatible with the system.
Really can remain consistent throughout the years with that quote unquote style of his that we approved and everything.
Well, we would have to look at it and see
Yeah.
what sort of approach we wanted.
Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty far down in this list.
Okay, because just some thoughts that occurred to me while I was reading it, because I think that first, to have somebody to say remodel the website pages to go hand in hand with ongoing maintenance in the same exact discussion. Because we don't want somebody just to do it, and we figure, okay, well, now that it's all done, we forget about it. Oh, yeah, 2, 3, 5 years later, oh, yeah, what about the maintenance of it? Like, what's going on with that? When we need to upload new landmarks to the website. So,
Well, one of the maintenance is also to figure out, okay, so just say we have a meeting, we have a new landmark. Who in planning development is going to be in charge to put that information into the spreadsheet? That is a very simple thing to do, but if we don't have somebody assigned to do that, we're going to come back, we're end up where we were before.
right, that's what I'm
And so,
saying.
I mean, that's two different things. Doing the website is a huge, big project versus who's just gonna go out to the meeting, type in, okay, we had this, put it in, and then put it in the file box and then, relate to a file box. That is something that I think is a simple thing to do, but it still takes time and it takes resources.
It's also up to the webmaster of the county now.
Well, the spreadsheet is
No,
there. You
We're
just
not
type
talking
in.
about that at that point. One is the set of files, the actual physical thing. The other is then designing a page that incorporates digital versions of those files and then puts that on the website. What the chair is talking about is the very basic, simplest thing, and then how it gets incorporated later. So we've got a way of doing this, but it's been very piecemeal.
Right, no, maybe I did not communicate myself very well.
I think we do understand your concern that you've got an ongoing situation and then you've got an overall situation. And obviously, they need to be compatible themselves. If you do one in one time frame, if you do the other in a different time frame.
Well, I'm just thinking the situation we're in now is going to be fixed, for example, by Chris Urban. So whatever that new way of doing things is going is, will be the new way of doing things. Whatever we're doing right now is would be in the past. We got a new way of doing things. Who is going to maintain that going forward? Will it be him that we're paying every single month? Or will it be the county webmaster that Chris is educated to?
But before it ever gets to the webmaster, there's got to be somebody in P&D putting it into our Excel spreadsheet and actually printing the documents and putting it in a paper file.
Now, is there somebody that's charged to do that right now, or is it one of us?
Well, this system hasn't been set up before, and staff has obviously just been sticking things somewhere. And now there's a very allotted process and a place that shows us where we can find things, but we have to keep recording it. So we've just simply acknowledging that staff is short-staffed. And there hasn't been anybody who did this in the past, assigned that job, just that job, and they weren't doing it. Having an outside consultant might be the solution.
Okay, so that's not something the webmaster would do.
No.
Got
Okay, but one more question, but we need to move on. We have some major items here today. So Commissioner Watashi.
Well, it's just observation. So I see the webmaster as it's the county webmaster, as a consultant that has many clients, one of which would be the HLSC. So I don't see the webmaster getting into the details of the HLSC. That would be a Chris Urban type guy who would do our detail work, and he's got a backlog here, stuff to do. And I don't see him as having a sinecure or the rest of his life to be on the payroll with us. He would be hired as needed. We have, for example, the work. So I mean, that's my understanding. I have one more question. So item D says, return to the research of the signage assessment. I know you had something in mind. I didn't know that signage was a big component of HLC, but maybe you know more about signs than I do.
Mr. Chair, a number of years back, gosh, maybe 5 years now, something like that. We put together a subcommittee. We went around and looked at all our landmarks and found how they were signed in the real world. Whether they had these classic wood signs, whether they had bronze plaques, and they're obviously all over the county. And if you actually look at the mandate of the HLAC, it's to communicate and educate the citizens about our historic resources. And signage is one of those ways we've done it. And so what we found is that there were many places where the signage was in very poor condition or didn't exist at all. We had new landmarks that weren't marked at all. And there was a definite need there that HLAC funding could go towards. But what we saw immediately that was needed was simply getting the website with the new listings on it. And so that's what we thought was the first task. But going back to that original assessment, there's obviously a bunch of different educational needs that we could address.
I understand. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, we're running out of time here, so let's move on. Let's say any commissioners have suggestions for this list, how to prioritize, give it to the subcommittee. I would say Commissioner Duncan, and then you can get your comments that way, then you can come back, and that way we can move on with this without spending all the time during our regular meeting. But thank you very much for leading the start on this, because it's a very important subject. Okay, let's move on. We have budget, which we do not have a like budget today. We have not received it, so we're going to be skipping item number 6 at this time. And we'll move on to district reports. So individual commissioners may present brief reports that would be of interest to the public. Any commissioners have a district report?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a report per se, it's more of a query. Whether or not we have heard anything back from the orchid farm, because I believe the owner who we saw on our tour, but who was in Port Hutt, has passed on. That's why it affected the situation.
Okay. Yes, actually, I got an email forwarded from Mr. Stewart before he left on this issue. So trying to recall that at the moment. My recollection is that they would not be pursuing that combination as a result of the property.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any other district reports before I move on? Okay. I'm going to do an update on the Rockingham Park resolution for a historic landmark. After, as you know, we probably thought that today is going to be the day that we were going to look into this. And again, it was postponed after the last meeting, which was June 13th. We were preparing the notices of county development, planning development. We're preparing the notices because you have to have a 20-day notice for a hearing for a resolution like this. And we were getting them already be mailed out. And it was, Mr. Ryerson noticed that we have 3 parcels on this resolution. And they've always been on the resolution, all 3 parcels, all the way back to 2017 when we first did the very first proposed resolution. It turns out one small one, APN 023240002, which is less than an acre, is actually owned by the city of Santa Barbara. And so it's like, oh, okay, how do we send a notice to the city of Santa Barbara? And so we decided that, first of all, we probably needed to physically talk to the city of Santa Barbara, not just send them a mail saying that we're going to want to put your less than 1 acre as part of a county historic landmark. So we did a little more research, and I know a lot of people helped with this, but it turns out that this parcel in 1974 had an exchange lease agreement between the city and the county for a 99-year lease. So in other words, the city gave the county a 99-year lease to operate this parcel in exchange to put a pumping station behind the fire station, which is on Foothill Road, which is on the other parcel in the park, which is 023240-00. So we decided, okay, we have a 99-year lease, the county from 1974 to probably 2074, working on, the county is operating this property. So I went ahead and made a call to the city administrator to the city of Santa Barbara, and I was referred to other people, and it's been an ongoing couple-week process here. But I actually had some positive things going on. But we finally got a hold of the public works principal engineer of the city, and he is working on finding. First of all, we want to see the actual 99-year lease, and I know Ms. Ryerson is working on that at the moment. I don't know if you found it yet, but she's working on finding that because the city wants to actually see the lease from the county. We actually have this lease to operate this project. So it's a very convoluted process, but you can see, I think we're having some nice conversations with the city of Santa Barbara. The very first, they said, oh, this is something that can be done very simply. Well, nothing is simple. So, but we're working on it, and we're hoping to get this resolved. At least we know who in the city of Santa Barbara to send a notice to that. Before we didn't even know where to send the notice. We actually have a name in the department if we pursue that in the future. So that's really the status. Is we're working on working with the city to because we have to have good faith in working with the owner of property to become a landmark. So that is what we're doing right now. Is good faith. They actually are working on actually giving us the being able to put it part of the resolution. But I mean that is something down the road, hopefully sooner than later. We also got just recently. County Public Works, Chris Nedden sent back a reply after our meeting a few months ago of a possible solution to our resolution that Public Works would be happy with in the new in a resolution that would satisfy their needs. This is something the subcommittee is going to meet on and go over. We feel it's appropriate. So anyway, that is Rockingham Park. Today was the day I thought we'd be hearing it. And there's always seems to be something going on that extends further, but we want to make sure we get everyone on board and make sure we have a very strong historic landmarks resolution before it moves on to approval for the county supervisors. So that's my report on Rockville Park. Lake Kachuma letter, I assume we haven't received a response yet from the letter we sent. I just wanted people to know that we have not received a response. At least I have not been informed of a response here. And that is my report. Any others? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the standard agenda. And we will go to item number 8. This is the Malone alterations. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and provide comments on phase 2 historic resources technical report, which was designed in coordination with Jake Calendar. The property is a 0.69 acre parcel, zone 2E1, and is located at 1097. There is a typo in our agenda. It is Golf Road. It is not Gold Road. It's Santa Barbara area.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask commissioners, I did email a memo this morning from the project planner, and I think I did provide also hard copies of that. I think our project planner has been waiting very patiently on Zoom. I think it's available as well. Ms. Volpe, I believe that you had stated that your applicant was going to be here in person.
They're sitting on the side.
I can go collect them.
And just asking commissioners, is there anyone that needs to step down from this project? Now's the time, says.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't need to step down, but I did have a question regarding our agenda listing here. Because the agenda listing refers to us reviewing and providing comments on the historic report. And I, for one, do plan to do that. But usually what we're providing comments on are the actual changes to the building. And that's what I was looking here for the listing. So we could hear from council, is this going to be adequate for us to do our job?
Okay. Chair and commissioners, yes, it does look like there's a couple of words missing in the text of the agenda. It's probably meant to say something like historic resources, technical report, and alterations. But I think that it's sufficient. Everything that's in the agenda, I think, is sufficient of a description in order for you guys to be able to provide comments today.
So you're saying that we can comment on the alteration?
Yes, if you can, because it does say alterations in the title of the item.
No.
I have that declaration to make. I have spoken with the architect and I have visited the property, but I have no personal or financial interest in the property.
Okay, so we'll move to staff report on this item.
Hi, good morning, Commission. My name is Kathleen Volpe, and I am the assigned planner to this project. I'm fairly new to this, so I appreciate your feedback based on the agenda as well. Moving forward, the residence at 1097 Gulf Road was built in 1917 by Francis Townsend Underhill. There have been some minor exterior alterations, but no major additions since its construction. The phase 1 analysis determined that the study property does possess historic integrity and sufficiently meets association-related criteria to qualify as a historic resource at the structure of merit level, as well as meeting significance criterion C for inclusion on the California Register of Historic Resources. The phase 2 analysis determined that the proposed changes to the study property meet the standards for rehabilitation of the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties and will not result in a significant impact to the historic resource. We bring this project before you for review and commentary on the report provided and the alterations proposed with this project. With that, I will turn it over to the agent, Gretchen Z, and the historian, Jay Carlander.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Okay, there we go. So.
Okay, I'm Gretchen Z. Yeah, yeah, where do I put my plans? Are they going to be on screen?
We have plans to show you. Or
I
show
mean,
we?
they're the same plans that you have, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Lopez has the plan.
Oh, we got the
Okay,
plan.
all right.
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so, the owners of this project are a family, and they, they'd like the house very much, but there are certain things that they want to remodel and repair on the existing. And primarily, they will leave the east wing as it is and do the remodeling on the west wing. And they really love the severity of the house as it is, and so everything at the front will stay the same. And when you enter the courtyard, they will change some of the things that are in the courtyard, but it'll basically have the same feeling that it now has, quite severe actually. They're not going to just pepper it with windows. So there had been some remodeling done to the western elevation, probably in the 50s maybe, I would say, and they want to do all their remodeling down there. And I think you can see that. You can see what we intend here on page 3. So maybe that's a better place to start is on elevations. And you can see the north elevation is exactly as it is now. The courtyard elevations, I'm showing that we, from a landscape point of view, we just plan on having gravel, and it's not yet decided whether we'll have DG or some kind of more permanent paving. But probably a wellhead or fountain in the center, and then the rest is just olive trees. And and a trellis that will be right outside the doors of the living room, which you can see right under courtyard elevation. And I have here a photograph of the kind of trellis that they would like to put up if you want to give that to them and pass it around.
Is this the courtyard trellis you're talking about?
It's not quite ordinary. I mean, it's a very light trellis. This is in the courtyard, and there is currently on the east elevations and the west elevations of the courtyard, there's a single door in the center, and they're taking that single door and actually kicking it down and incorporating 3 doors. So you can see that here. And then at the corner, there's a tiny little window, there's a bathroom window. And there was a pair of doors in the other corner that's on the left-hand side, and that we're removing. So and then the living room elevations, which have the trellis on them, those 2 doors stay the same, but the trellis will be there. And instead of what is currently there, I don't know if that was original or not. There would be very awkward structures in the corners at the entrances, and we want to remove those, and we're just going to put very simple steel awnings over all that are suspended over all the doors. So that's fairly simple in the courtyard. And then the other change that we are proposing is on the west elevation, and that currently the west elevation, if you have seen any photographs, is it's just a mixture jalousie windows, fixed windows, casement windows. It's really, not at all attractive. And so we're bringing some of the character of the house, the original house, back to that west elevation. And okay, so that's that. And then the other change that we're making on the elevations is on the south elevation. There was a deck there that we are replacing with another deck. And we're changing the doors. There are windows, and we're creating, in the same openings, we're making them doors that will go up to the deck. And then everything on east elevation stays the same, and the two projecting wings on the south elevation will stay the same. And the other change is that we would really like to use steel windows and doors. And the existing are so that is a change. And I brought some photographs with you of some Underhill's other buildings that have a mixture of those, and I can pass those. And the deck that we're proposing will be a stucco, and we're not sure exactly. We're still discussing with the structural engineer how the deck will be as if it's part and parcel of the stucco that is in the rest of the building, and not the frame, not the. And the other change that we're proposing is to paint the red brick white. And from a landscape point of view, only the courtyard is changing. Everything else is staying the same. We are putting, it's not part of my permit, but they would like to put a pool in, which I indicated that will be a pool that's just probably without a deck because there's expansive soil, and so we will just have the pool with some pavers and grass, and it's a very sort of simple thing, and that will be pretty much the landscape. So I think that does it. Say that.
Okay, let's move to questions on this. So we'll start with Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. You don't have any pictures of the way the interior courtyard is now?
It's a hodgepodge. There's a tiny little bit here. It has brick, which I'll pass this happens. I have it in my phone. Yeah, what it has is brick going
Let's go
around
back
the
to the
perimeter.
mic,
Pardon?
please. You refrain from speaking unless you're on.
You need to be.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It has what going on in the perimeter?
It has a brick walkway going around the perimeter. Then it has a kind of semicircular hedge, like boxwood or something, not quite sure. It will be almost as if that area was planting the trellis. They wanted a patio there, although currently it's not doors, it's a window. But there's a semicircular hedge there, and then
I'm
there's
not concerned about the landscape in the courtyard so much. That's just how the building itself appears. So it would appear the only thing you have is the very top of the set of plans that shows the interior. We're seeing that it has a parapet wall all the way around the interior.
It had, yeah, at the top, the north side of the property, that wall is creating the courtyard out of it. shaped windows.
And
And
that's
that stays the same.
all the way around.
Well, no, what's there, that wall is there, and the other two walls are the sides of the building.
Okay,
The other three walls.
but what I'm trying to get at, yes, I don't have this plan or this. The shed roofs, is there a flat section of the roof between the parapet wall that you see in the courtyard and the wing elevations that you see from the outside?
That,
That's right, that's what, okay, yeah, so it's that severe.
So it's got a real severe
Yeah.
interior. roof.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
And also, I wonder, you gave us these pictures, speaking to the issue of using the metal in the windows and doors. Pointing out that this other Underhill house on Ortega Ridge Road has no windows. Does it have no doors?
It has, I'm not sure.
Because it doesn't show that in this picture.
The Solana does, definitely.
Another house.
Yeah, they're not the same as the metal doors that we're proposing, they're more elaborate. And they have curved.
Okay. So you're going to end up taking the wood and painting it so that it's essentially the same color as the stucco.
Oh, yeah, the red one, yes, yes.
Do you have any idea what it was originally? Because it
No.
sounds like it was taken off at some point and treated in order to remove the finish and then put back up.
Yeah, we don't have any photographs of it. We don't know if it had been painted.
One interesting feature that you show in the pictures is this small wall element that's out in the garden, which obviously seems very dated now. And it will be below the pool, it would appear. Is that wall element going to be retained?
No, it's not, it's in ruins. I mean, it would have to be repaired completely, and I don't really want to do that, so, we're just gonna take that away.
Okay, I think the most of my other questions are going to be actually for the historian. So thank you.
Sure.
Yes,
Commissioner Tosh, go ahead.
I have questions continuing along the lines of what Mr. Duncan was asking. So this little fountain to be demolished, which has the wall. I see it, but there's a big change in grade between the existing backyard and then the yard of the pool. Is there excavation of and removal of soil in connection with this property?
For the pool, there will be, for the deck, there was a deck there before, and, I'm not exactly sure what form it took. I mean, I think it is. Well, I mean, we're having steps down to grade, so we're not doing any excavation except for the pool, so that, I shower on that.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. I'm looking at the photograph and I'm looking at the elevations.
Yes.
And it does seem that the pool deck is considerably lower than the grade that I'm seeing. in the picture. And so there would be excavation of the pool.
No, I don't think that's true.
Not true.
No, not true. I mean, it's definitely, there's quite a bit of difference between the finished floor and the pool deck.
Okay. All right, that's fine. So what is the deck material around the pool?
The deck, they were just like a coping just around the pool and then grass.
Hoping around the pool and grass.
Yeah, not a deck around the grass, which would work better structurally because it's expansive soil.
And what is this little fountain wall? You say it's in terrible condition and cannot be replaced. What is the material that it's built with?
It was most probably built with bricks. I mean, it looks like a combination of things actually, and plastic.
So it's masonry and plastic, brick and plastic?
Yes.
Whatever it is. What is, when you say it's deteriorated?
It's
is it
falling over.
Falling over structurally?
Yeah, it's
Cracking?
structurally really, it's probably dangerous.
More questions? I understand that now. So this wood siding that we see on the building,
Mhm.
the report talks about it having unfilled nail holes, which suggests that it was either recycled or removed and replaced.
Uh-huh.
You have any idea what was there when Mr. Irving's plans? The original.
No, that there are, you can find any plans. And Jay and I have talked about that, like maybe that was added later, we don't know. But they apparently took off that redwood siding off everywhere and had sent it out to be stripped and brought back to its original condition. So I don't know if it had paint on it, what was on it, stain, I don't know.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, could you share that photo? I have no question.
Mr. Malcolm, do you have any questions? I have a couple questions. In your report, you mentioned that the courtyard is considered inside the house, and so it doesn't, it's not part of it's not part of the outside. And I just have a hard time grasping that because it's all open to the elements. I've seen a lot of homes in the area that are kind of a loft feel where they have an indoor courtyard and all things around it. Valverde is a good example of that. I just me personally consider that as being outdoors. It's outdoors, so I'm curious how you get to that conclusion that the courtyard is an indoor feature of the house.
Yeah, good question, and I'm not super adamant about it. I think it's when you're at the place, it has a very interior feel. It's not, I think it's partly the drabness of how the courtyard is made to the landscape. It's not a stellar feature of the spatial relationships of the property. But it's just a double door entrance, heavy wooden doors, and you go inside and I don't know, so I guess it's just kind of a feeling. And so would not be opposed to your interpretation if you would go to the site and see it differently. But it doesn't look as if the viewer of the building is intended to really experience that inner courtyard a lot from the outside. That seems to be intersecting much more than a place that's designed for entertaining or expecting on traffic. I guess that's just kind of a feel I have. It's very spare. There's only the one entrance from the front, which is pretty open, very much intended to be open in the line. So I think it's intended as an interior space for the dwellers. So that's the way I see it. But you're right, it is outside, and it's their outside walls technically. So
It's all plastered like the front.
yeah.
Question about that, the wall on the south lawn. It sounds like you have no really historical features of this house, so when it was first built or plans, what is the age of that wall? It looks like it's very similar to the front wall at the front of the house.
No, it's not like that. Oh, you're talking about
This very back, the south wall that has the old fountain that you're
the
planning
little
to.
box, yeah.
You're planning to
The
tear
piece
down.
that is listing it, that part. So you're not a wall of the house, but a wall of the,
No, it's that separate.
that garden piece.
Garden.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the fountain.
Not
Oh,
really, sorry.
in the book.
Yeah, no, I think that
There,
that's,
you have that. No, yeah, you could, you're.
on page 27 of the report, only a dividing wall and south wall. Yeah, I think that that's probably original. Francis D. Underhill was also a landscape architect, and so I suspect there was probably a bit more, probably quite a bit more design and maybe some formality to this garden. It actually, and it's of a piece with some other properties that I've studied in the area where they have sort of standalone garden walls like this. There's one across the way, for example, based on design by our architect, that actually came before the commission. So it's cool, but it's kind of standalone now, and it is in fact falling apart. There are cracks. It's listing. It's not. It's clearly been neglected for a long time, and I think the landscape elements of the property are, apart from this portion of the south lawn, gone. I mean, there really isn't much evidence of what this connected to or spoke to on the rest of the property, which is unfortunate because it's probably that's the point. But I've learned over time that looking at properties that garden elements and landscape elements can disappear fast if subsequent owners neglect their upkeep. And I've found that before, and that seems to be the case here. And this now, so as a result, with the way that the landscape appears, this piece is just kind of sticking there, a relic of an earlier time when the property looked much different. It's kind of all by itself now.
It's very charming. If it were in good condition, it's very charming, and they may have liked that, but to restore it, they are not interested in that because they would rather spend the money on doing something else. But I don't think they have anything against it. Actually, it's like a little Baroque looking to me. I mean, it doesn't have that severe, when you get down and you look at it, it doesn't have that severity of the lines that are in the house. And it's like what's that called? It's just a fun little thing.
Oh,
Oh, right, I knew I was trying to find that word. And, it's like, it's wonderful in that way, but it's really, you would have to build it all.
Great, thank you. Any more questions? Mr. Decker? Okay.
So, in your drawing of the site plan, can we look at the site plan? Yeah. In the back of the pool, proposed pool, where we you are showing, there's some drawing that I have, three little squares, and you don't show it on that drawing. But I'd like to know what those three.
Yeah, those are that far. I mean, they're dotted lines. In this location right here, you're talking about.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
those,
so-
and I'm sorry that doesn't, that pool deck, which they don't even want that deck anymore, but is obscuring the rest of that little.
Okay, so that's what those are.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so then again, you show a little square to the, I believe it's the west side of the pool. Is that the pump house?
Yeah, I'm figuring that they'll want the pool.
So what does that look like?
I don't know yet. I haven't, I don't know. I don't know yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry.
And so then your drawing also shows these large stone pathway, large pieces. And is that replacing the brick?
Yeah, no, there's no brick. There's no brick outside. There's only brick in the courtyard. There are currently very, very large paved flagstones.
Flexes, and that's what those are,
and that's what those are.
existing to remain.
Existing to remain and to continue where there aren't.
And then to the southeast west, there's another thing here, the print is too small here. What is it that's to the west there?
Oh, I have just a legend.
It says new, no, there's a little,
Oh, new slab on grade.
go up a little bit,
Right
there in the middle of the house, new slab on grade, you're right. So that's, what does that slab look like?
That slab, may be the same, in fact, maybe a slab or maybe the, flagstone. We haven't
Limestone or
decided.
something, so
Flagstone.
undetermined at this point.
It's undetermined,
And
yeah.
then the patio is when you step out of the living room,
Mhm.
what is that?
It'll be tiled.
Terracotta tile?
That's not determined yet.
Okay. And what was the material of the little yard paving material that was removed in front of the fountain and
You
little
mean
water
that?
feature?
Down,
It's now a blank area, it's now a dirt area. What was that before? It was
oh, in the back there?
dirt? Yes, between the house and the little fountain.
Oh, I don't know what that, I mean, what will that be or what is?
Historically, what was it?
I don't know. I think that the deck went down probably to this little fountain and it
You don't
probably,
think it
it
was
looks
a
like
big
it was
one?
grass or something, that it was probably, it's kind of a level place.
You think it was grass?
I think that it was on grass. And that there's sort of these, along the side that almost subtropical kind of vegetation.
Right, the landscaping does seem to have that in the front around the houses, palms and marsh leaves and
Yeah.
so forth there. Okay, so I'm curious about the backyard there, the area that's going to become the pool.
Well, I think they would like to have, originally, before we got a soils report and before we talked about this in detail, I just thought they wanted a pool deck, but in fact, they do want grass there. They would prefer to have grass and just some flagstone to get to it, and that would work out much better.
Right. You've answered my questions, and so thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're handicapped with here is that we don't have any pictures of the interior courtyard. And also there are so many pictures of the exterior. So I'm understanding now what I didn't understand before is this whole stair element that'll be south of the deck, that's all new, that's all.
That's all new, that's all new.
Okay, and was that something that the historian looked at in terms of analyzing it and its appropriateness?
Yes, I wish I had more evidence as to what was there. There's a curved kind of foundation wall indicating probably the boundary of the deck. I suspect, in answer to Commissioner Woodhouse's question about what the back area was, I think it was grass, lawn, probably manicured with similar steps in a kind of similar place. I think it was one set of steps central, would be my guess. I've tried to find an aerial with any kind of indication, but there's such tree cover that I would have included one if I hadn't found one. But I suspect that there were sort of central steps coming down from the deck to the lawn, and then to view what we're calling the folly element. And there's another, in the very next page, there's a little bench there that's just to the west of the garden wall. So I suspect you were walking down to the lawn to see.
If you scroll, you
Yeah.
see a few houses. Sorry, that's.
I could see here the protection over the door elements in the courtyard. These are the things that you're removing.
I apologize, that's my fault too. I should have included pictures in the report, and I don't know why. I think we visited on one occasion, and I went back on another page to take pictures, and I couldn't get anything inside, so I think that's what happened. That's what I
I
apologize.
think that
That's
if
fine,
you
it's
scroll
fine.
through, you'll see the picture of it.
So the reason why I asked about the steps is because otherwise, there's no steps here for us to reference. There's nothing for us to compare to how Underhill would have handled this.
Yeah, I suspect it's a central set of steps, probably not, super prominent, but leading down and maybe expanding out to the on other Underhill properties, you kind of likes an expanding staircase, like if you look at the entrance to Solana, even though this isn't the entrance to the back of the house, but elements that would flow out and broaden as you enter the landscape and something like that.
And symmetrical, I take it.
Like,
Because the way the front is.
Definitely, yeah, front and back in this case, yeah.
Can I say something about that? I did notice on the elevation, on that south elevation, that lower down, there's a niche.
Like in the hallway has the same ditch.
And then, so I have the feeling that the two sides of the deck, that their doors, and there was a door in the dining room that was covered up, that they both fed down to something that was central and then came down to something probably that spilled out onto the grass, because that arching thing, I think, looks very generous and grand. And it's just too big of a drop to not do something like that, it's just be uncomfortable to be down there.
Okay, and then in your report, I'm wondering about one thing that you've written, it's on page 6. Talking about the assessment.
Yeah.
And it says the residence is not historically or architecturally significant under Santa Barbara County or California Register of Historic Resources criteria.
Let me see here. On page 6.
To me, that sort of seems that all that's with your other findings.
That's probably just a typo. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a mistake on my part. Because I do otherwise find it significant at the structure merit level, so I think you just caught me missing that.
So you wanted to read the residence is architecturally significant.
Yes, so I'm sorry about that. That's okay, but yeah.
And then I wondered why you found it was only qualified under structure of merit level instead of landmark level.
Yeah, I probably could have put more language in that, but I think because the west elevation has been altered considerably. Because the siding has clearly been removed, there are because the deck is gone, and we don't know what it was. I think that there's been enough change to the place that it, and elements that, remodeled elements that are of much lower quality than what was originally there. If you compare the east elevation with the west elevation, it's quite a substantial difference. It looks like the west elevation was turned kind of a 50s, let's have a patio and entertain outside, and louvered windows, and maybe a pass-through window. And as Gretchen said earlier, kind of a hodgepodge of fenestration and doors on the west. And I guess I just thought that these elements lowered its significance to the point where I don't think I wouldn't feel comfortable calling it landmark level. It's not intact enough at all elevations for my taste. I mean, we don't have much guidance as to what separates landmark from structure of merit, but I would, in my opinion, those types of things, those types of changes. And it's a curious place. It's I'm not even sure if it was intact what we call landmark. It's a strange place if you do it. It's not, as I say in here, it's not unsuccessful, but it's a little weird. It's quite a juxtaposition of the classical front and back with the arts and crafts sides. It took me, I had to go back. I made several visits to stare at this place and enlisted, well, I said, you have to see this place. no, so saying it, but just take a look at it. And I had Alex Cole go look at it as well. And her guess as to the original color of the siding, of the wood siding, was probably white, which is what the owners would like to restore it to. She thinks that, and this is her formal opinion to me, but she said, I suspect that because the battens are so narrow profile, much narrower than you usually see with board and batten siding, that it almost meant to have a nearly flat classical appearance. And if that had been white, that would have almost unified it more with the front and back. Because with the natural brown hue siding now, it really it's a stark contrast, maybe too stark. And yet the overall thing, the overall massing of the building, and it works. It's not a striking thing. I haven't seen anything like it from Underhill. You see the front facade especially is familiar if you look at his work in the flat roof building, but otherwise, and even there's a book on arts and crafts architecture in California, headed by Robert Winter, and there's a chapter by there it is, towards Superior Way, right. Chapter in it by David Gephardt on this, not on this, but on Underhill, and no mention of this house. And so it seems to have gone under the radar. It's a very interesting thing, which is another reason I thought that it's significant, because it's a unique piece of his. But unfortunately, it's had those alterations, so I didn't feel comfortable calling it that word. But definitely structure behind it.
And then I wondered about their assessment of the placement of the doors and windows with metal. I see you cited this other house on Ortega Ridge with a footnote down here on this one page. But the thing I'm really wondering about is the compatibility of the new doors in particular with the existing fenestration and doors. And can we see a drawing here? If we can pull up one of the ones that, David, if you could pull up the drawings again, and look at the big sheet that we can look at some of these. The ones that has elevations.
Yeah.
There we go, okay. So what I'm really looking at here is the proportion of panes in these metal doors in particular, and how many of them are horizontal. And when you look instead at all the things that we see that are existing, I don't think the panes tend to be a whole lot smaller, and they tend to be either square or vertical. And what I'm wondering about is that this horizontality of the metal door panes, it makes it look so modern. Now, I know you can sort of, now this is a little between the two of you, obviously, there's the architect and your analysis too, but that may work with the modern, like you're giving this severe structure, but I'm not sure it works with the historical look that, and I don't think you're gonna find that in this Hosford's house. So that's a question to you, whether you would consider that in that detail aspect.
Yeah, it's a very good comment and a good question. Where I come out on it is that there's a very strong modernist vibe to this house. The arts and crafts aspect of it has been enhanced by the brown siding. But if it was white, if that siding was white originally, then I think it does have the appearance more of a kind of a modernist abstract structure, notwithstanding the battens and the board siding. And I think that actually the steel windows and the steel doors, even with some horizontal and some vertical lines in the doors, I really think the structure not only would withstand that, but that's not the right word. It would. I'd be kind of looking forward to that look. I think it would bring out the modernist modernism that has aged well in other buildings in an appealing way. I really think that the significant aspect of this house is the massing and then that strong juxtaposition of the board and batten siding with the classical front back. And the other details are I don't think that they're, the windows and the material of the window muntins, to me, it can work either way. With it could be wood, it could be steel, as long as they're sort of remain that narrow profile and with the grid appearance that they currently have. I think that will look real nice on this house, actually. That's where I come on. I mean, I respect your opinion very much, and so you may see it, but that's what I think it'd be kind of a cool enhancement of what's of a feature and vibe that's there.
Well, the word we're looking at, which you have to refer to, is whether it complements or not.
Compliments, yeah, and I think it does. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think it does. I think it does strongly, actually. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Knight?
Yes. Mr. Carlander, one of the things that Mr. Duncan asked you about was the just now is the proposed multi-window doors and windows, multi-pane. The size of the individual glass pieces are larger than those that appear on the exterior.
Yeah.
And I think his question is how, well, is that appropriate to this historic home?
Thinking of photographs. I was just saying, I think in some of those photographs that I sent up there of the Ortega Ridge and the Savannah, they have the larger lights in the steel windows. Because they have the larger lights in the steel windows because you could do that. I mean, if they would want to do that. I mean, in that, these sorts of steel windows are, I appreciate this, you know, whether this complements one, you know, the two existing at the same time. But I think that the question of whether those are historic, you know, historic, I think that they are. I mean, I think that they had those large lights when they used steel in the 20s and earlier, because they could, and that they would want to do that.
And I can't cite an example of lights of that size in comparison with smaller lights. So it's a good, it points out a good difference. Again, I guess I looked at this and thought that it's not so out of proportion that it is jarring or inappropriate. I thought that it works. What's there now, the courtyard is really a disappointment. It's when you enter from the north elevation through the main doors into the courtyard, and then you have just very uninspiring landscaping. You're looking ahead at the center of the north elevation of the bottom of the view, and you're looking at a multi-pane window that is just it's strange, it's odd, and then you have these small entrances on the corners with these very likely added coverings, and I think that the elevation doesn't work, and it maybe represents alterations, at least with the entrances, the corners, certainly with the covering. That wall, I think, is due for some redoing. And so I thought that this plan actually opens that up more nicely. It adds a more interesting fenestration that is not out of keeping with the overall design of fenestration and of things that you see elsewhere. But you're right, it's a bit of a change. Again, I guess I just think that it works and it's not inappropriate, but that's my feeling. But thanks for clarifying what was the cast.
I have another question, but I think Mr. Duncan he wants to continue on.
Yeah.
Just a note that, one of the details, and this house has very little detail. One of the details it does have are these molded stone lintels above the windows.
Yeah.
And you see that both in the front, and in the back.
Yeah.
So in the back, where you're getting rid of these windows and turning them into doors, those lintels are gonna disappear.
Fair enough, yeah.
Could I just add something about the doors? Is that when you see the house from the outside, especially, I mean, rarely will see it from the west, but you will see it from the east and the north, and the south a little bit, it's coming up, same as Cedro. But it's basically gonna stay the same as it is now. I mean, the courtyard will feel completely different, but you don't really see that from the exterior. I mean, it's all completely consistent itself. And then when you're in the living room, everything is, you never are in rooms where there's both the steel and the wood. It concerns me too. I mean, I take your point.
When you do drive up to it, you actually see the west elevation as you come into the driveway that comes into the front.
The west, no, you don't see the west elevation, you'll see the.
You have to come up from the top and come the other way around. What I'm wondering is that's the one place where you have the stucco blocks on the front. You're sticking in a window on this one side, which isn't there now, correct?
Yeah, on the west. You're talking about the western window, yeah. And that window is using an existing window that, from the house, you'll see that that's not.
You're gonna relocate.
That, yeah, it's a relocated window, so
But that's-
it would.
But that's not a place that you see prominently as you drive up the house.
No, I mean, people who live up Gulf Road would see that, but as you approach the house, you don't see it.
Yeah, you really don't see the house. You see the north elevation when you turn on the Gulf Road from Hot Springs. Coming up Hot Springs, I really don't see.
I
much
mean,
of
if
the
you
house at
look,
all.
I've seen it because I've looked really hard,
There's-
but
Yeah, there's a lot of cover.
Yeah,
space, and
yeah.
So you see the north elevation, what you will especially see. So as you turn, you're going north from Hot Springs, you make a left on Gulf Road. Then what comes into view is the north elevation and a bit of the east elevation. Although a lot of that's obscured by the garage. And then from coming east down Gulf Road, you don't see much of, I guess you might catch a little bit of the morning. You don't see much of west elevation. There's a lot of cover there. The golf course is right there. So it's what's really visible is the north elevation.
yeah,
And
it's
right
that
now,
wall.
Yes, yeah.
And the courtyard would change very much. I mean, I think that the courtyard now feels sort of new. And, I mean, the tendency for people is to put windows all over. But I think they like this house. They love the front elevation, and they want to respect that tone. And so, I think that the window, well, the openings are the same on the living room side, and they're just a little bit larger openings, just makes it a little bit more friendly, but still keeps this sort of austere wall and plaster that is characteristic of the house.
Yes, quickly, Mr. Rikash, can I see that sheet that you got? One of the very small photos on this sheet that you provided, it says, entry structure in courtyard to be removed. What corner, where is that?
These are at the doorways that are on the south side of the courtyard, but the living room elevation. That, like, if you look on the floor plan, you can see a dotted square in the bottom of the courtyard.
It's the top row on the south, that middle elevation of the top is the south elevation of the courtyard. Yeah.
Yeah. This
But it's not showing the structure.
wait, are you talking about in the courtyard?
I guess so.
I mean, I don't know.
They
what-
don't have any
I
photos.
guess yeah,
Just have this.
Yes,
So,
that's my fault. Do we
that looks like,
I'm not sure I can see what that is. What did I say, of it existing?
well, I guess this is one of two. I know that, well, I should talk.
Oh, okay. This one is in the corner. You can see that on the, if you swipe on the phone. There are just these very awkward structures that give cover to two entries that are they're actually on the north side of the south of the north elevation of the living room. After you've entered the courtyard, when you first enter the courtyard, that's the elevation you see.
So it looks like
Where
they're
the trellis
portrayed,
is and those other two pairs of doors.
it looks like they're portrayed on the site plan. Oh, they're on both of the site
Yeah,
plans.
the site plan, there are these dotted lines. You see they're dotted
Mine
lines.
are not dotted,
Oh, okay.
but I see what you're talking about now.
And they're just in the corner. They're stuck in the corners.
And, Mr. Carlander, you were still pretty certain that these were additions?
I'm pretty certain, yeah, they just don't have any, they're metallic and there's not really a design element that's interesting at all. They don't have the look of anything older than.
They're
Boston Forties.
metallic?
Yeah.
What is metallic? What are you talking about?
I'm sorry.
This is Mr. Carlander's description. With the columns
No, the columns are wood, actually.
are wood.
Yeah, I can see. They have flashing on them that makes them look, I mean, they're not very well done. It might be wood covered with metal. Yeah.
They've had flooding at both of those corners, so that they're subject to miss with those structures not preventing water from getting into the building. So, yeah. And they're kind of an eyesore.
I see.
I wish I could
They're
represent.
very clumsy.
Okay,
Plain square posts, I mean, it just seems like a quick addition to add some covering to those doors and they cause problems apparently.
okay, thank you.
Okay, I have one more question here. I'm a little confused on the south elevation, but I think I'm figuring it out. In your report on page 20, it doesn't really show doors at all. The photograph you showed us shows still no doors. Are those two small windows maybe where they're, I mean, how did they access the south elevation? Because you're putting in two doors and I don't see any doors on the south elevation currently.
So this is hard to see on, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're asking about the existing south elevation.
Yeah, the existing south elevation, I mean, you said.
There actually
they
is a
have
door
access to the
there.
Backyard, but how did they get to the backyard?
So so if you look at that, on page 20, if you look at that photograph, there's a kind of a vertical, it's hard to see, but there's a kind of a vertical, almost looks like a shadow. That's a door, that's a French door that has no floor to walk out onto. There's another
Oh, because it
one.
used to be a deck.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly,
Okay,
yeah.
now I
And there's another door, you can't see it because it's obscured by the board mat block that extends a little bit past the central portion of the facade. But there's another door on the other side, so they access the deck through those two side doors, and which is why, Gretchen was saying that they seem to clearly kind of feed to the center and probably down to the longer. But you can see, so you can see there that curved foundation, it was fairly substantial deck.
Yeah.
However, it looked there, but assuming it occupied all of that space there.
Okay, so thank you on that. And so on your plan, for the future, I'll put the plan back up, David, I'm sorry.
The south elevation, it's in the middle of the one we just had up there recently.
So, keep on. Yeah, okay, so the south elevation plan, so there, that one there. So are they putting a wall in, or it seems like the doors are covered, so,
That's a railing, which
That's a
will
railing?
be a solid railing. It'll be plastered.
Doors are behind.
So
the
they're
doors are
behind
behind
that.
it, so
Yeah, I should have shown you what the doors are.
okay, and there's like a step down to the deck, and then from the deck down to the,
Well, it's hardly a step down, it's just like an inch or something.
okay. Okay, that's my question, thank you very much. Any more questions?
There will be questions during the comments.
Okay, well, let's move on. There's no more questions. Let's move on to public comment. Are there any speakers that we have who want to speak on this agenda item? No? Okay, we have no speakers. So we'll move on to public comment and well, who wants to start first? I'll just put it out there. Who'd like to start? We'll start with Commissioner Duncan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is a treat to be able to look at this building. I thought it was very interesting how you phrased it in terms of being a not unsuccessful combination of the two styles. I think that's sort of damning with faint praise, because in fact, Underhill is amazing. This is one of our most amazing Center architects in terms of the range of styles and the proficiency with which he executed them and how bold and daring he was. Some of his very notable structures are very small bungalows, and some of them are huge estates. Not many people would attempt to combine the arts and crafts tradition with this classical tradition as he does here. And I think you're totally right in terms of where you find this satisfying some of our most demanding criteria of being a unique accomplishment, something that's really special, and then also as being one of the few around, because there just aren't many structures that are like that. And in that regard, I would say we are very lucky that it has retained as much integrity as it has so far. So I think I would sort of rather see we were totally returning to the west elevation to the way it was, but it's hard to know how it was. And you return the siding totally to the way it was, and you were asking us to designate this as a landmark, because I think it's a really unique structure that tells you something a lot about our architectural history. But since that isn't occurring, and we don't know exactly what's happening, what happened on the west wing originally, what I do want to compliment you on is retaining the overall configuration, retaining the footprint as it is now, retaining the east wing, which is so untouched, and retaining obviously the north entry frontage. What I'm concerned about is some of the things that you feel may fit in well in terms of a modern or almost brutalist look with these large metal doors. Somewhat detracts from the original arts and crafts heritage of the structure. So I would really encourage you to look more carefully at the existing doors that were on the structure. And for instance, there's that one little door on the east wing. It's a little 10-liter, but you will see that it's got 5 vertical panes instead of 4. And none of the panes are as big. And so I'm not totally averse to the idea of having metal, but it's the proportion of the metal doors that I'm somewhat concerned about. And I think if you could change from that horizontality of those panes, getting them back to square or verticality, you would be more compatible with the arts and crafts side of the structure. But then I think generally I really appreciate the very restrained approach and the idea of keeping it simple, because we don't want to detract. It's just that the doors seem too strong in their severity. I would love it if you could retain the little folly in the yard, because that's one of those little arts and crafts things that's still left there. I would have liked to have been able to see in the drawings which show existing, and then what's proposed. It was a little hard to work with these little notes of the scale we're looking at, to just try to analyze them. And I would love to have seen pictures of that interior. I understand what you're saying, that this is a very private courtyard, but also it's a strong statement about what the architecture is about. So being able to experience that with some pictures, I think is would have been helpful for us. The trellis elements you are adding, I like how lightweight they are, and if the simplicity of that is really nice, and I think you're sticking to the cleanness of that interior in the courtyard as you have in that entry wall on the north. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, who'd like to go next with comments?
Commissioner Whittush?
Yes, I concur for the most part with what Commissioner Duncan has just said. Regarding the little folly, I understand the owner's sentiments about, throwing good money after bad, trying to fix it. That folly is a very, very delicate little piece. It's a charming piece. And it is a relic from that arts and crafts. It's an arts and crafts element in the style. It would be great if you could retain it or something like it at the back of the pool, so that you can just look across the expanse to a body of water and some, with a molding grass and nothing. So I think you need something to kind of hold the view of that pool. And that little folly will do the job.
Yeah.
So, and with respect to the paving materials that are going on around the house, you have these large flagstones, you have the terracotta, you have some concrete, whatever it is. It would be nice if you could decide, and I don't know exactly what the paving material is in the courtyard, but if that were what it was originally, it'd be great if you could reproduce that around the building and unify some of the materials on the ground. In the courtyard, I see under elevations that you have some metal canopies with tie rods back to the building. So those are extremely modern elements. And I wanted to say something about Mr. Underhill and Irving Gill having very similar, I think Underhill came first. And I think Irving Gill came later. But Urban Guild modernized essentially the Spanish style. It's a very simplistic style, not the Andalusian style, but more Castilian style. He simplified it. I think Underhill was doing this, and the fact that he made this, now, I'm a little, the doubts that I have about the painting of the redwood siding are because I don't feel that we have enough information about it now with Mr. And if in fact it was painted white, and then some subsequent owners said, you know, these really need to be natural redwood. And took them off and stripped them and brought them back and spent a lot of money to try to get them back to their natural redwood. It seems like it would be, I'd like to know what Mr. Underhill intended. And it would be great if he could somehow maybe dig a little deeper into the research, find, go into the, I've been to the library. But there may be other places where you can find some photos of that. The treatment, painting of the redwood, I understand it would make the building as a whole look more unified. But it bothers me that it departs, I don't know whether it departs from the intent of Underhill or not. And the word compatibility was used, and I think that, I mean, compatibility for me is the same as the intent. It's the historic intent. So, I like the idea of the steel windows. I think it's a great way to get rid of a lot of the hodgepodge in administration. And it applies to both doors as well as to the large bay windows that living rooms. I do agree with Mr. Duncan's comments about studying the scale of those lights and getting some kind of conformity, more compatibility between the size of the lights and the doors, the size of the lights and the larger ones. The steel is an appropriate material, steel section. Other than that, I really appreciate what you're doing here to this building. We'd like to see some of those the arts and crafts. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. I concur with previous comments. There's been a problem in the process of this presentation in that we were not given elevations of what's there now. So it's very difficult to really assess what you're proposing versus what's there now, what was original versus what you're proposing. And along those lines, we obviously need photos of the interior of the courtyard to be able to help us make those evaluations. So those are two important elements that didn't make their way to us. I do feel that the openings on the courtyard are too modern, too large, and the lights are not compatible with the era of and I would say my feeling is the same on the large windows and doors that are being proposed on the south elevation. And just hitting some of the global issues, there are many elements of this proposal that are not addressed in the historian report. I'm not sure that the demolition of the fountain was addressed. We have, there's no description of the deck, the proposed deck. In the report, whether or not it's compatible with the existing building. That seems to be missing. And what's being proposed, we now see, is a pretty doggone large element there with currently a solid wall. And I guess these two steps that go step down, going one to the east and one to the west, and then another set of steps. Again, we lack the detail on that. I understand that that's all still being discussed with the owner, but it's hard for us to evaluate or assess something that's not well finalized. We can respond to something that hasn't been designed yet, and that would go for the pool. Plans say that there is to be a deck or a pool, but I understand that now that's not happening. So there's to be a shower, steel trellis. There's to be a 4-foot wall at the front of the property. That was not evaluated. It was mentioned, but not evaluated as to its compatibility with the property, since it would be basically out in the front of the public city. I understand that perhaps that's another issue that hasn't been finalized yet, but these are all very visible items that we need to see visually what your plan is for these, and then the historian needs to take your plans and review them for our benefit as to whether they're compatible or whether we're not. Since this is a historic property. Getting to the report, I think there were a few oversights which Mr. Duncan mentioned. It's identified as a phase 1, phase 2 report, but the first page of the actual report says phase 1, and then subsequent pages all say phase 1. The executive summary refers to the property as retaining architectural significance of the structure of merit. Well, we don't have structures of merit. We have places of historic merit. So that's an issue that was throughout the report. These are small items, but you know, that's what this is all about. There's no description of the courtyard in the report. I can see. So that needs to be included. This third paragraph on page 2 fourth line down, the protruding center block of the east elevation. And it goes on and on. I would say that the center block is recessed as opposed to protruding. But maybe you had something else in mind there. I will make this fast. Skipping over some typos. Moving on to page 4. The last paragraph, second line, you mentioned that a large balcony was removed from the south elevation. I think you mean a large terrace, perhaps? Just a question. And I think as Mr. Duncan pointed out, page 6, you say that the residence is not historically significant. You talked about the interior courtyard as being an issue with interpretation. I think we can consider the interior courtyard as being exterior. Oh, on my page, I'm on page 10 of the report. So I think the issue with my issue with the report is mostly, to just sort of wrap it up, is the need to tell us, the commission, whether these changes are compatible with the existing historic structure. We've gone through very energetically and workmanlike through the Secretary of Interior's standards, but there's no indication regarding whether that are appropriate. You talked about the new wall, the pool, the utility structure. There's no information on design and so forth. So those, in order to be brief, I will stop there. I would like to see that the presentation and evaluation of various elements in this project be more finalized and brought back to this commission for so we can make more. We could have made this a lot faster if we would have had the information at hand. So we could make smarter, more helpful comments to the applicant. I think that's the gist of it from my standpoint. I know others have questions and comments. Thank you.
Commissioner McDowell, do you have any comments? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just looking at this here, over 100-year-old structure by a relatively local famous architect from back in the day. And it's a unique structure, and it's the architect had made many different structures that are unique, not really necessarily the same style. And so this is meant as a unique structure. And I realize that, say, the west elevation has been altered a lot from that, but a lot of the house has not been altered. And today it's being proposed to alter a lot of the historic original parts of that house. So I don't know how significant the alterations are, because I'm pretty ignorant architecturally, but when I see something like replace multi-light window on the north elevation of interior courtyard with French door to the sidelights, I kind of question okay, what's the justification? Is it out of convenience and preference, or can we make a historic justification out of it? It's just a question of cautionary yellow flag that came up to me. Okay, what's a justification to do that? Still keeping with the historic design of it. Because there was even though the courtyard may be simple and not what we might think a courtyard should be, but there was a reason and a justification that the architect made it so. And also the folly fountain, I guess we're calling it. Well, it may have lost context from the landscape that is altered since the original landscape. I understand that, but it has still stood the test of time there. It's falling apart. However, you know, how much of a custodian does the owner want to be on a historic part of their property? So I just want to bring up that I'd like to see that structure saved. Just because it's part of the house, it's part of the landscape that may not be. Like I said, the context is lost, but it's still there, and I would like to see some effort in saving that. Yeah, just in general, a lot of generalized thoughts I have there, but I just want to bring up a couple.
Thank you, Commissioner Down. Okay, Commissioner Nash.
I have a couple of very small comments. I noticed from the photographs that both the parapet walls for the stucco and also for the wood siding have moldings. And I see that your plans do not show any moldings at all at the top of the walls. I think those moldings should be preserved. Something should be preserved there to cap the walls, the parapets. This is not the same as Irving Gill, who did not have moldings, but this is one of the arts and crafts features of the original building. That is also true of the little folly in the backyard. The other thing is there's mention of stone lintels. I'm not sure how stone got up there in such above windows, but there is a lintel element. And I think that lintel element should be a part of the design, like the moldings. This is not a modern, parapet. We call it moldingless parapeted wall. These have moldings, and I want to echo Mr. Hoffman's sentiments about do as much as you can to preserve and rebuild, repair that little folly wall. That's a great little piece. You'll find it hard to reproduce that in any form. It's an original contour profile. That's it.
Okay, it's my turn here. First of all, I'm very appreciative that the applicant is keeping the original footprint of the house, and we're not doing an addition or a second story that would really change the whole overall look of it. So I really appreciate that they're working within the boundaries, the footprint of the original design of the house. I feel that, like with Commissioner and I, we just did not get enough information to really talk, you really need to see a lot of these proposals that you're showing. You have a little drawing, like this south deck. There's so many walls and stuff that you can't really see on the diagram that I really think you need to come back and explain to us what you're really planning to do on that south wall. The west patio, I'm a little more not so concerned with that, but the south, I think, is a major part of the house, and we just don't have enough information today to make a good decision on that. And again, I reiterate that I feel that the indoor courtyard is not an indoor part of the house, it's outdoors. And I think we need to look at more closely at exactly what is proposed for the courtyard. So far, I can't really say one or the other, I'm in favor or against it, I just need more information. As far as going with the steel windows, I think that is fine, it goes with the age of the house. It's just, we want to make sure that it's not too modern, and I just, again, without seeing precisely what they're gonna look like, I can't really make a judgment, but the overall idea of the steel windows I like. It's just seeing what actually they're gonna be. That dividing wall in the south lawn, I think it's so important to this house. I know the landscape is gone, but that was part of the original design of the house. And I think it should be saved, and I think it would really look nice if whatever happens in that backyard. Again, we don't know what the pool's gonna look like, but it'd be a great backdrop to the pool. So I think it's something that shows the history of the house, it's part of the history of the house, and it should be preserved. So for me personally, it's hard for me to say I really like this because we haven't had enough information. I think you need to come back and really give us more details on all of these aspects that you're showing us today. So that we can make a very good informed decision. This is mainly comments today. We really don't need a motion or anything. So again, thank you for coming. Again, thank the applicant. Owning a historic house is a lot of work. And unfortunately, sometimes you can't always do what you want to do. But we always want to work with you, and we'd love you to come back, give us a little more details on these proposals, and definitely people. Anyway, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
It might be nice if they had a minute to respond. If they have any response. If the architect is.
Oh, well, I really appreciate all of your interesting comments. It's really helpful. And it's coming through loud and clear about the following. And when I first saw that, I felt the same way that you do. And I think that's an excellent idea I mean, it would definitely have to be rebuilt, but maybe we can rebuild it and incorporate it into the pool. And I think that would be wonderful. I'm not quite sure how I can present it so you can understand. I understand it better. I mean, I feel like the doors and windows are really clearly shown what they are. I mean, so I'm at this point, I'm not quite sure exactly what I should show you next.
But I think what help a lot is pictures.
You mean of what
of what's there now, and then what you propose, and do like a side by side
Okay,
of all of the different elements. I think,
all right,
you know, we're very visual,
yeah.
I think in general, and whenever a project comes and there's only a few pictures, it's basically.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
I've never done it, I've been before you before, so I wasn't quite sure. I kind of at the last minute thought, well, maybe I should take these, and I see that was an error. I should have done
So I think that would help a lot.
I mean-
Mr. Duncan, you want to-
Having the elevations, one set existing, one set,
Okay,
rather than.
no
little
problem,
notes.
no. I
You've got to
have one.
remember that we're working at this scale already.
Okay,
So
all right,
unless we have a whole set of plans, and on some projects we'll get them, and you can talk to staff to see whether,
I didn't know what.
whether it would be worth our bother or a more effective means of communication if we could get some larger scale sets.
Oh, that, no
And
problem.
certainly pictures of the interior courtyard. Just a little extra thought on that folly.
Mhm.
What it is an outdoor angle look.
Oh, okay,
See?
I see.
If you look at it that way, then, oh, this is the archetypal arts and crafts feature, but it just happens to be outside. You know, then with the little benches, you know, inside the house, it would have been around the fireplace. the
Yes,
little benches, see? But
yes.
here it's around this little pool, the little fountain.
May I ask sort of about the deck in the back? I mean, just, maybe I can explain, I didn't explain it very well. Because of the great difference, in elevation, that, and there being a pool down there, of course, I just wanted it to be a kind of more gentle, thing that you look at. So that's why it's planters and, mixed in with the stairs, so that it's a more gradual, building to the ground. And so all of it will be white I mean, it's very simple, actually. It will all be white plaster. And just like the rest of the building. And perhaps I need to show it to you in 3D or something. I mean, I feel that most of the intent of what I have is here, and I guess I didn't explain it very well, and I didn't.
I have
draw
a
it to
I have a
you.
response to that. Oh, so we see the deck
Yeah.
and we see the pool.
Mhm.
And my judgment from photographs is the difference between the deck and the pool is at least 4 feet.
Oh, it's greater than that.
At 6 feet.
Yeah.
So if you count the number of steps between the deck, and you show 4 little steps from the deck down to the lower deck, and then another 3 steps down to the pool deck, I count a total of 7 risers.
No, they're more than that.
Are there more?
Yeah, there are more. Well, I mean, there's some going down the center, then going down the side, and then coming down.
Okay, I didn't see the second step going
Yeah,
down the
I
side.
mean, it's easily more than
Well, if you tell me that you've got, you know, 6 feet, there's gonna be at least
Yeah,
10 or 12 risers.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Anyway, that's probably what's
And
missing.
so I was trying to mix the steps with some planters just to soften.
No, that's very evident. I
Yeah.
just, you know, I'm
Okay.
engineer, I have a brain side, on one side of my brain is engineer, I count treads, I count steps.
Okay, right, no, there are, I don't know if there were 13 or, I'm not sure. I can't
Okay.
remember, but-
I mean, we can look at the plan and see,
Yeah.
maybe it can show us where they are, but that's okay. I mean, I'm looking at a plan here that I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I see 5, 6, 7, 8.
And then you go up the center. The
I don't,
center.
yeah, I know, I'm counting those.
Yeah,
So that's all I see, is I just see the 4 and the 3 on this plan.
oh, okay, yeah.
Which you have
that would be
section,
different.
Yeah. So that's what we need detail on.
Okay, I mean, I think maybe if I did it, something in 3D would make it.
Okay,
One last quick comment. I think what might help you is think of us as the planning calendar. We're used to seeing actual architectural drawings that people are submitting for permit. We don't need all that detail, but that's the level that we normally see, where we can clearly see what you're proposing beyond just an elevation.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we need some detail
Well, this is
to
just.
help us.
Yeah, these are
Yes.
just more conceptual.
These are conceptual and our job is to comment on projects that are actually being proposed. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So do I schedule, what, typically would I come back to you, before I would go to, say, Muncie or Board of Architecture?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so as soon as I can schedule, I don't know.
Yeah, we can get into next month, I know, we don't want to draw you out, and the owners, I know, want to move
Yeah,
on with this.
okay.
We don't want to be a hindrance to you moving forward. Let's take a quick 10-minute break, because we do have one more item. And it's on the Plant Garden memorandum. We do have a form today that I think is finished, but let's take a quick 10, let's come back. 105.
I was actually wondering about that because but then I stopped thinking about it because
Okay, I'd like to bring back to order the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission for July 11th, 2022, after our recess. We are going to item number 9. Sorry about that. We're going to item number 9. It's the Botanic Garden Memorandum. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and may determine whether to approve and send a memorandum on the difference in interpretation of resolution number 2003-059 of the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden County Landmark number 24. So everyone in your packet should have received, this is, like I say, a proposed memorandum, which has the revisions that was sent in by Commissioner Nye from the last meeting. He sent them to me, and I incorporated, I think most of them, I might have missed a couple, into that. And then today, I know Commissioner Duncan has a few more additions or proposed additions to that, which I believe we have it. We put it on the screen.
David had just a minute ago, he's got it, that all of you received copies in your packet.
So I guess, Commissioner Duncan, do you want to go over your suggested additions to this, and then we can go into questions?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, at the very top, under introduction, revise it so it reads, resolution designating the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden as a Santa Barbara County historic landmark. And then number 24. The way it reads right now, it appears that the whole designation is number 24 is the important. This points out that it's a Santa Barbara County historic landmark. Then the final sentence there under the introduction, I think in order to expand it and clarify a little bit, I think you will have it read, HLAC feels its purview extends beyond the limited review authority described by staff based on a very narrow interpretation of a single sentence. And I suggest we put that all in bold.
Yeah, under
Where is that?
there's only one copy. We did not get it.
Everybody got this sent out.
I did not get that.
It's in your text.
In your text?
It was on, it was in the box. And it
Was it wrong?
was in the box.
Sorry.
No, it should have been. So we're reviewing suggested changes. I don't think it's appropriate to do that in advance. That's why we have it on the screen here.
Okay. So where are you proposing to put this new text?
Okay, if you look, I do believe these are in the box, David.
Go to the top of this document.
If you go to, okay, if you look at, in your other hand, you need the actual memo. You got it. Okay. So the first section are two small changes to the introduction. One, we made it Santa Barbara County Historic.
Okay. Yeah.
Then this next sentence, right now, it reads, HLAC feels its purview extends beyond the limited review authority outlined by staff. And I'm suggesting it reads, HLAC feels its purview extends beyond the limited review authority described by staff based on a very narrow interpretation of a single sentence.
And you wanted that in bold?
Yeah, I'm suggesting we take that whole sentence and put that in bold. And then down under differences in interpretation, in the first two sentences of the third paragraph, replace the three references to line with sentence. because that's more action.
Where is this?
Yes. So that's the third paragraph, right at the very bottom of this page, where it says first line of paragraph, takes it out of context. This is how the line reads. Okay. There are three places where it refers to line, and in each case, replace it with sentence. And then put the first line from the perspective of the HLAC, take that whole sentence and put it in bold. So once again, this is describing the core of our argument from the perspective of the HLAC.
Just that,
That's
just that phrase?
No, from the perspective of the HLAC staff's interpretation of the first line of paragraph 2B2 takes that line out of the broader context of the entire resolution. The whole thing should be in bold. Okay?
It changed line to sentence.
Yeah. And that way, as it goes on now, you have a new paragraph that starts, this is how the sentence reads. That'll be a new paragraph. Right at the bottom of that page. There.
On the third page, you're on the third page.
No, we're still at the very bottom of the first paragraph.
Okay, okay.
So then,
Add this phrase.
on page 2. Last sentence of the third paragraph. It reads all the noted items that can be changed or items that are already existed within the garden. And at the end of that, at the time of the landmark designation. Okay, and then the sixth paragraph here, it begins, this sentence indicates, 1, 2, 3, 4. This sentence indicates that despite what the previous sentence says about changing, I suggest we take all that paragraph and put it in bold. New features must conform with the criteria of the landmark designation. Another critical part of our argument. The whole, it's a small paragraph in the whole paragraph. Then, when we move to the next page, the last 3 paragraphs are really something different. So I suggest we actually give that a whole heading above it that says application to the backcountry garden project. Because the rest of this has been all about how we interpret the memo differently. And then, given that we interpret the memo differently, how does that apply to the backcountry garden project? That's what all these last 3 paragraphs are about. So the headings we have are introduction, differences in interpretation, and application to the backcountry garden project. And I thought you were all getting this in your box. Sorry. All right.
You know about a physical box, you know about a digital box?
The digital box.
Digital box.
Commissioner Knight, do you want to go over the changes that you gave me there in this document, or?
Those,
Are you fine with everything?
I was fine, almost like a couple minor edits,
Okay.
very minor.
Okay.
I would put up in the, under memorandum, the reline. Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, that country garden project. I have put a colon after the word project. And before the word statement. Yeah. Then, under differences in interpretation, the last part of that sentence. In other projects areas where the HLAC can only comment, I would say may instead of can. Moving down to the next paragraph, third line. Ordinances that enable HLAC review, comma, and I think I would insert or kind of restrict, is that, would that make sense? Or, I'm not sure my own, no?
No, what we're specifically asking is, where are the documents and ordinances that restrict our authority to those features or actions that require it?
Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there.
At least that's the intent I was getting across. If you have a different intent, means different meaning.
No, I thought it needed an order. I don't think it does. Oh, there's something about that, the way those two fragments.
That's
Don't seem to connect.
That's it by putting a comma.
Yeah.
We're still looking at the same paragraph. What's the final resolution?
I would say take the comma out.
Okay. Take the comma.
Review or restrict?
No. No, I see now what you're saying, and I think the comma is going to throw me off.
Okay.
I mean, that's just me, whoever else.
Enable HLAC review, restrict the HLAC's.
Yeah, just pull out the comma between review and restrict.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Those things do
Yeah,
restrict.
they do.
That's what restricts.
That's what we're saying. Now I get it.
Nice.
Okay, next page. There are 3 places on this page where things have been both italicized and with a very weak underline. I'd like us to take that weak underline out and maybe bold those italics. Which is
I think that makes sense to me.
the weak underline doesn't really say much, and even the italics is weak.
I'm fine with taking, in every instance where it's both italics and underline, just making them bold.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I agree with that. Down at the very bottom, second to last line, very bottom of page 2, I would insert a comma after the word clearly. And lastly, on page 3, second paragraph, third line, the period needs to be inside the parentheses. Squiggly. That's the only one you missed. This, whichever of you wrote this memo, did an outstanding job.
Combination of a lot of things here. Commissioner Duncan is the first.
I just chipped around the edges on my suggestions. This is really good.
Commissioner Duncan is the original drafter.
But we all worked on this.
Is Jeffrey Wilson still the assistant director? Because I thought he was, but then I didn't find him on the website, so.
Yeah.
Wondering, okay.
I think I found it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess next step, first of all, we need to have this redone again with the suggestions. Any comments on these suggestions? Because this is a lot different than the one that was shown last month, because I added Dr. Nice, and now we've added Commissioner Duncan's revisions or additions. So all these seem fine?
Let me ask one question.
Yes.
This is a letter from you to,
We now have it to a specific person. The original draft was just to planning and development, and now we're directing it to both the director and the assistant director.
okay. And what is your desired goal? What do you want to achieve?
Exactly what it says here regarding Santa Barbara Botanic Garden Backcountry Garden Project Statement of Dissent to County Staff Interpretation of Resolution of our.
This is just a statement of dissent. This is not a statement of what you want. it to
Right,
be.
it's, we have, there's a difference in interpretation between planning and development and HLC on the resolution of Santa Barbara Botanic Gardens. And so this is a way we want to put down on paper that we'll have a record that we disagree in their interpretation of the resolution and how the backcountry garden project came forth.
You're not going to go to the resolution and change the wording.
No, this is
Yeah,
just, we need to decide what we want to do with this letter. That's something we need to decide whether, are we mailing this memorandum to the director and assistant director? Are we going to put it in the file next to the resolution? There was some question that does this have to go in front of the full board of supervisors, but we're not changing the resolution, so I don't think we have to. But it's a matter of deciding where to place this for future 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, that we had a disagreement in interpretation of the Botanic Gardens historic landmark.
What is it that lawyers do when they have cases that are reviewed over time? There's an amendment to some kind of attachment. Attorneys refer to these in their trials, interpretations. So we would attach it to the resolution. It's just an interpretation.
I'm not sure if you're referring to an addendum or something like that, but there's a board of supervisors resolution, so I don't think it's to actually attach as part of the resolution. I don't think you really have the authority to do that. But you could put it in the file.
An interpretation.
Yeah, that was, I think, our general agreement is we wanted to put this with the original resolution in the file, so when people pull it in the future, they will know of how we interpret the resolution versus other people.
I agree with that interpretation, Mr. Chair. And I think it would just be in the file so that in the future, if something comes to us from the Botanic Garden, just the way they printed out the resolution for us. And oftentimes we get from Manny's, I noticed we've had the resolution come to us, and then there's also something about, whether it applied to the glass partition in the interior that they tried to put in without contacting it. That gets stuck and attached to the resolution too, when it comes to us, so that we've already been on record as
interpreting the resolution and saying, yes, it applies to that. And so we're doing the same thing here. And I think the appropriate thing is to send it to the administration of the ND and also put it in the file and copy it to the board of supervisors.
Does that sound?
Yes, I would just send it by, as an attachment, as an email from you. Copy to the director. And anybody else, you can see it. And maybe before you do all that, run it by Nancy.
I mean, there's corrections that
No.
need to be done. I want to make sure the corrections are done.
Well, that's
Yeah, it should be reviewed before it's sent, just to make
just
sure.
for typo, not content. But
I can get the corrections. I have the sheet and that's true you did today, but I just want to make sure I don't miss something before it's sent out.
As the administration feels necessary.
Ms. Ryerson, how do you feel about us? I believe this, is it proper? Your vote.
I think it's fine to send a memo.
Thank you.
Little technical question. The document is referred to as County of Santa Barbara Planning and Development, Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission memorandum. So we come under the county of planning and development, right? And so that's us with the memorandum too. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Okay, so if it's all right with everybody, I will work on the changes that were done. I will review it with the vice chair for any things that I might miss. And then I will work with whoever we have as our staff. Jonathan, David, whoever, to figure out how to send it properly. Correct?
David and I were just comparing, it probably would be appropriate to take out planning and development at the very top there. Because it's not from them.
But just have historic landmarks advisory commission. Okay, so I did County Santa, okay, just take out. Okay. That's why I'm gonna run it by somebody before we send this out. I'll do it, the three of us, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, it has been a very long meeting.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, we probably need to vote on this.
Is there any public comment?
Is there any public comment?
So we need this, no, do we need a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll need a motion. Who would like to do a motion?
What would be the motion?
To attach, well, we'll do the motion, we'll have it, the motion should mention who we're gonna send it to and what we're gonna do with it after we send it to them.
So, Chair,
Yes, go right ahead.
I would move that the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission finalize the draft memorandum regarding the Santa Barbara Botanic Gardens resolution and its interpretation by both the HLAC and planning and development staff. With the amendments we've discussed today, and authorize the chair to forward the memorandum to the appropriate parties and have the memorandum filed with the resolution in planning and development filed so that it's readily available to all those seeking how to interpret the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden historic landmark designation resolution. Which is number 2003-059.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Commissioner, second. So let's see, we need to do a roll call vote, so I'll do left to right, Commissioner Bennett, Commissioner Whittosh, Commissioner Knight,
Aye.
Commissioner Malcolm, aye, Commissioner Cotton, aye. Okay, that's that agenda item, and that's the end of our agenda for today. Our next meeting will be August 8th, 2022 at 10 a.m. and it will be here in the Board of Supervisors here